How would you survive as a civilian in Halo lore during the Human Covenant War? Well, today we go over some fun examples on how civilians managed to fight back or slip by the Covenant in Halo lore and survive, and their strategy to survive a glassing or a sudden Covenant attack on a city. And we have some really interesting examples, also theoreticals on how you could survive. So let's jump into it. It's gonna be a fun one. This video is supported by Audible. Snag yourself a free Halo audiobook right down in the description below. The Covenant had no problem killing billions of humans, committing complete genocide trying to wipe them out. And as we saw in Halo 4, we saw firsthand that the Covenant had no problem whatsoever executing fleeing innocent civilians. They were proud to commit mass genocide, children and women alike, although we didn't see it on screen, of course. If you were in the shoes of a human civilian in the 2500s, what would be the best course of action to ensure your survival? Let's talk about what civilians in Halo lore have done and what the UNSC and ONI did to protect humanity during the Covenant War. Any number of Covenant ships could descend onto a populated planet with little to no warning. All it would take is one carrier or cruiser slipping past the orbital defense guns for invasion to begin, like we saw with the Prophet of Regret's assault carrier, or the Solemn Penance when it ignored Earth's defense platforms and beelined straight for New Mombasa. Interestingly enough, for this particular attack was actually notably different from how the Covenant usually operate. This was mostly due to how Regret was woefully ill-informed when it came to Earth. His battle group was unusually small for an attack on such a well-defended world, a fact noted by even Lord Terrence Hood. Regret, in his haste to discover the portal to the Ark, didn't consider the fact that human resistance would be present. The Covenant attack proved to be hellish on New Mombasa's population. A reporter noted that the Covenant usually operate by dropping in scarab tanks to, quote, clear a path for the real attack. But as far as we've seen, this is the only case in which scarab tanks were the first vehicles on the ground. Usually the Covenant like send specialized ground troops to disable high priority targets like we saw in Halo Reach. The scarab tanks more than likely were placed there due to the dual purpose of the Shock and Awe campaign as a means to clear whatever impeded access to the Ark's portal on Earth, but also to demoralize the population and troops. And the Scarab was initially designed as a mining vehicle rather than a combat unit, but their ultra-heavy focused cannons were perfect for digging out large chunks of Earth, and also human cities. So let's put ourselves in Halo lore. Oh crap, the Covenant is here. They have begun attacking your colony. Now you might think that you have plenty of time to prepare your family and your friends with an efficient and well-rehearsed escape plan that will go all according to plan and get the hell out of Dodge. Well, you would be pretty dead wrong because it wasn't that simple. In almost every instance we've seen in Halo lore, a Covenant invasion is pure chaos and a mad dash to perceived safety. Remember, the Halo games kind of underestimate the ferocity and violence and how terrible Covenant invasions actually were. They were much more in the actual lore. The invasion of Arcadia has people literally running out in the open to a trio parked cargo ships while Covenant troops casually just picked them off. The invasion of Reach saw similar results, while panicked locals being mowed down by brutes, ripped apart as they tried to escape. And even on board, civilian transports were shot willy-nilly out of the sky as they tried to get the hell out of Dodge. It makes sense why most, about 98% of all of Reach's population, even though it was very well guarded, and also had plenty of protections in place for civilians, still saw most of the population die. New Mombasa may have been the worst case, with absolute madness gripping its civilians when they saw all exits of the cities clogged with traffic it could just not handle. It was mayhem. As refugees poured out of the city, the congestion was too much for the public transports, and many had to be simply left behind. People rioted against local police force. There were many cases of looting and people threatening to kill each other over supplies. In one particularly desperate or maybe stupid case, a man even tried his shot at reasoning with the Covenant, giving away his hiding position before being evaporated into nothingness by a wraith blast. The general population's ignorance and inability to quite understand the Covenant's violence and their true nature really explained why the UNSC pushed out so much propaganda. Their original goal was to keep the existence of genocidal aliens a complete secret, and when that was no longer possible, was to underestimate how bad everything was and to ramp up Spartans and the UNSC being more strong than they actually were, when humanity was quite simply being wiped out. So if you were unlucky enough, you wouldn't even know that the Covenant existed before they started wiping out your planet. Assuming you had enough time and money to have your own private ship to get off the planet, which most people didn't, you would be pretty screwed. So the chances in of itself just being a normal civilian were pretty slim as it was. You see, people in Halo lore didn't really worry much about the Covenant threat until, well, it became real to them, because their government reassured them time and time again that things weren't so bad, that the UNSC was putting up a good fight, and not to even sweat it. The reveal of the Spartan program was meant to further perpetuate this message and boost morale, although even at times, hundreds of Spartans would die within one day, or over the span of a week. It was bad for Spartans too. Obviously, the odds of surviving are much higher if you are a Spartan or even near a Spartan, but considering their very low numbers, considering the many colonies and billions of people, you're more likely to have never even seen one in real life. Regular non-biologically augmented UNSC personnel were at best a meat shield between you and the Covenant war machine. The UNSC only won 1/3 of its battles. 1/3. 33% of its battles, but that doesn't mean that they didn't lose any ships. Many people died, including civilians, in these battles, and that doesn't include all the colonies that fell as well. Time has proven to us over and over again, even in real life, that people can be as big of a threat as, well, the original threat that's making them afraid in the first place. And Halo lore is no different in this situation. People were fearful with the Covenant, and even those who weren't taking place in the looting and the rioting, well, there would be mass evacuation on the transports, and if you could not get on one of the first transports out of the city, then you would risk becoming a sitting duck in the crowd of hundreds or thousands of people who are gambling on reliable transportation to rescue them before Covenant rains down plasma on their position. The battlefield may be safer depending on how resourceful you are. Scavenging weapons after a fight can make a good means to defend yourself or to disperse unruly crowds. Now, if you find a partner in this mess, or a group, you can exploit some classic Halo mechanics. A tag team consisting of one person wielding any traditional ballistic UNSC weapon, or another one with a discarded plasma pistol that could prove quite effective if could knock out their shields. But coming up against a brute could be pretty challenging. But yes, using the infamous noob combo of shooting someone's shields down and then milling them certainly sounds like it would work in this theoretical thing, but that probably only works for Spartans. A civilian could not just shoot a plasma pistol at an elite or a brute and then knock him out. It's much more complicated than that. Assuming that they need shields to be knocked out of, they would need to be shot in the head, and that might not be easy because brutes are lightning fast. Elites also are lightning fast. A lot of people think that Spartans are more powerful than the standard elite or brute, and Halo gameplay has kind of misled us into thinking this, but in reality, Master Chief has almost died by a single elite, almost died by single brutes before, and even a flood spore almost got the best of him. So when you think of running against the Covenant as a civilian, your chances are quite low. Although if you run into grunts, those might be the easiest to fight. Although they do stand at 4 feet tall, and they do come in groups, shooting plasma that's up to 3,000 degrees hot. If you get hit, you are out as a civilian. You are done with. A Jackal actually poses quite a nightmarish threat, because not only do they love human flesh and will totally eat you alive, they usually have a shield accompanying them, and that can be pretty tricky, not only in Halo gameplay, but even a civilian trying to shoot their feet or their arms sticking out from the shield. Unless you're a bodybuilder running into a Jackal fist-to-fist fight, you might have a chance, but otherwise, no. But as far as elites and brutes, you cannot kill them as a civilian, even in the 2500s, without proper planning. A little ambush, a lot of luck, maybe some heavy explosives, and most ideally, of course, an ambush. That is probably the best way. This even said in Halo Evolutions that brutes are natural predators of humanity. If we were on the same planet, brutes would hunt humans, and they do in Halo lore. Their astonishing good scent of smell leaves you with little options of a surprise attack. If there is more than one in your vicinity, you are dead. You best get the hell out of there. If you can run, because you taking 3 steps is 1 step for them. They're big. On average, they're about 9 to 10 feet tall. Think about how tall that is. That is about as tall as your ceiling. Drones fly around in swarms and will ferociously attack you firing plasma down from the sky, so little chance to fight them unless you're a great aim, maybe an ODST, but otherwise you're pretty much screwed. And also, they like taking people off, and I think eating them too, although I don't know about that last thing. But hunters are absolutely off limits. I mean, you are pretty much screwed if you run into a hunter. Hunters are actually, of course, if you don't know, composed of hundreds of worms, Lagola worms, which are powerful foes even individually or even in a small clump, and they could likely slither into your hideout and kill you, assuming you barricaded yourself and they know where you are. Realistically, when it comes to being a civilian, even in the 2500s during this war, hiding would probably be your best chance of survival, as Covenant scouts make their way through cities. Species like brutes and jackals have a much better sense than humans. Just staying out of sight isn't enough, so your smell will actually give you away in due time, and humans produce a lot of odor under stress, especially under stress. So you can actually mask this seemingly well by being near trash or getting up in mud. Sadie was able to keep hidden by a brute patrol just by hiding behind a dumpster. And if you really don't mind getting dirty, because your life kind of depends on it, it might be your best actually to survive a Covenant invasion by jumping into a dumpster or just making yourself smell like the environment. If you're attacked in the city, one of the better places to hide might be sewer systems. It could even be a good means of navigating the city unseen, away from the crowds and people and most, if not all, Covenant patrols, which I'm sure were aware of these sewers, but still lesser chance of them finding you. Spartan teams on Earth actually employed this tactic and used the sewers to move around undetected, and during the attack on Cleveland, a fire team of Marines used the sewers as sort of a base of operations. But overall, you want to keep out of Covenant awareness, away from Covenant eyes as long as possible. They rarely ever take prisoners. That means that they like to eat you, and they like to kill and torture, especially brutes. And you will be shot on sight. Doesn't matter if you're a kid or an adult, an old man in a wheelchair, you will die. It was actually during the Battle of Earth and the Battle of Cleveland, Ohio, that in the rare, extreme rare situation that they actually didn't destroy the city and rounded up thousands of civilians in a football stadium for questioning, whom, not soon after, a team of ODSTs wiped them out, and the civilians were saved. In the case where the Covenant is glassing your city, the UNSC has emergency protocols for the Covenant invasion, and hiding in a doomsday bunker under cities became the normal go-to. Noble Team actually did this themselves, just feet away from Kat when she is killed. In the extreme rare case that you are taken prisoner, your best bet is to hope you're not interrogated, and if you are, maybe use the Covenant seal against them. Colonel James Ackerson was able to delay his execution by making up a story about some secret foreigner key that actually didn't exist, which led them to Ohio, Cleveland, and that didn't work out. However, this did have the side effect of prolonging his torture at the hands of the Covenant, and he actually didn't survive this ordeal. So unless you are absolutely certain that rescue is on the way, or are a bit of a masochist, let's say you have ample time to plan ahead of a Covenant attack and have the choice to set up a shop anywhere in human occupied space. Reach might seem like the safest place, the most safest colony in all of humanity. But, as we saw, we know how that story ends, right? If you really want to survive, the best strategy would to have a very small, unnoticeable, private ship for you, your friends, and your family, and you are able to get the hell out of Dodge. Now, you might think, well, the Covenant's trying to wipe out humanity. Why would they go to unpopulated colonies like a rich place planet that's deemed uninhabitable by the public, like Beta Gabriel? Well, that actually still does not work. That is not a solid strategy because the Covenant will go there and kill you. It actually ended in a horror-like scenario. It's a bit of a disturbing story. It's in Halo Evolutions. I made a video about it. Beta Gabriel had civilians tied up, eaten alive, were made to fight each other to the death, and then eaten, and even made to sport and hunt down like foxes for entertainment by the brutes. It's a bit disturbing. Realistically, though, if you are caught by the Covenant, if you know that you're gonna end up dying, one of the 23 billion people that died by the Covenant in Halo lore, which, by the way, is Earth today, here in 2020, the population of Earth 3 times over dies in this lore. If you are one of them, make sure you go out in the least painful ways. It's a bit uninspiring what I'm about to say, but carry an extra bullet with you. A lot of people say that in a zombie invasion, you want to blow your brains out so you're not infected, but it's very similar in this kind of situation. The Covenant will not make it an easy, simple, straightforward death. A lot of them are sadistic, so yeah, you might want to kill yourself if you know you're gonna die by the Covenant. Ugh. Well, anyway, Earth, the location of some more notable battles in the Human Covenant War, might ironically be one of the safest places due to how concentrated the attacks are on this planet. The main attacking force was over Africa, specifically New and Old Mombasa, and then Voi, which later gets glass, so avoiding that whole area is a must. By the way, it got infected with the flood, which is why it was being glass, so you don't want to get infected either. Arizona, if you live there, gets swarmed by Covenant due to an unknown amount of foreigner artifacts that get piked by Covenant interest. New Phoenix later gets composed by the Dynacts, so just don't go near Arizona, honestly, 500 years from now. Sydney, Australia is the home of the HICOM facility Bravo 6, the headquarters of UNSC, and as a result was absolutely bombarded by the Covenant. And southeastern Mexico and Cuba were also targets, albeit not nearly much of a priority, so just keep clear of those areas. Don't go on vacation and you'll probably just be fine. Maybe hunker down somewhere in the Canadian wilderness or even Alaska or maybe even South America a little bit if you want to stay safe. The more I learn about Halo lore, the more I realize that I could not survive the Covenant. I would like to think I could, but it would happen so quickly, so fast that most of us, I think, would be blindsided by the might and power and velocity and hatred the Covenant demonstrated during this war. I mean, it is fast and it is violent and evil. But if you think you would survive, let me know your thought process down in the comments below. If you had the money or didn't have the money, where would you go or where would you stay? Let me know down in the comments below, guys. Also, be sure to read Halo 5 Trilogy on Audible for free. Get the audiobook. It is a great trilogy. Also, Contact Harvest kind of touches upon this stuff a lot, actually. The whole invasion thing is kind of like Reach. And if you haven't read Halo the Fall of Reach book, then certainly get that on Audible for free. Link down in the description. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Peace. You take care, all right?